AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
And off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. It's AFR presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar, not at the Raising Cane Studios. We are here at the DraftKings Sportsbook at the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles. As Alondra is fond of saying, I was unfamiliar with your style. This is a beautiful place. Thanks. Shout out to our friends here at the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles for hosting us. Great facility, and we're fired up to be here on a really influential day as the NCAA case for the class of 2022 eligibility stuff has taken another turn. We're going to get into all that here. Ross Dellenger in 15 minutes from right now. We got Scott Shanley next hour as the Saints are ready for their second preseason game. We got a ton to do. Let us begin as we do every single day.
It's time to pop the top on another edition of AFR with Bud Light. Drink easy.
Okay, we are going to get to Ross Dellenger in 13 minutes from right now to kind of give us all of the particulars of what happened today, but I'll give you sort of the abbreviated Cliff's Notes now, and then we'll go into nuance with Ross in the next segment. So remember that Colorado judge granted the waiver for all of the 2022 athletes for an extra year. Well, the NCAA appealed, and the judge agreed with the NCAA. So the blanket waiver for the whole class of 2022, that's over for now because all of the players can individually file a lawsuit in their own individual state. That's what all the athletes, for example, Trinidad Chambliss went to state court in Mississippi to get his eligibility waiver, and he got it. Well, for our purposes here, what's relevant is the 16 student athletes that were granted the TRO by a Louisiana judge earlier this week. That still holds. So what next? Is the NCAA going to go state by state and fight all of these cases? Maybe. Will they just grant a blanket waiver for the class of 2022, which is probably would have been, maybe it's not what they should have done. It would have been the cleanest thing for them to do. We'll say it that way. So I don't have all those answers. We'll talk to Ross Dellenger here in about a little more than 10 minutes from right now to try to get some perspective on that. But for now, the blanket waiver granted by that judge in Colorado, that's gone. If players want eligibility, they'll have to go state by state to get it, filing their own individual lawsuit, something that Jack Pyburn and those other players have already done. So we'll get more info on that in a bit. Tigers were on the practice field earlier today. Full disclosure, I was not there. I was driving here to Lake Charles. There's an event in Lake Charles called Legislator. Great event. Had a lot of clients and different dignitaries and people here, so I was there for the luncheon. And then so thanks to our friends here at the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles who were willing to host us for the show. So I was able to just go to that luncheon and then instead of driving back to Baton Rouge, pop over here for the show. Great spot, by the way. 10 out of 10 recommend if you've not been to Golden Nugget Lake Charles. Beautiful spot, and this DraftKings Sportsbook is awesome. TV's everywhere. Except for Gordy, who commandeered this giant screen in front of me, which if you're watching, you can't see. But it was football, and now he's got football on there. It's the opening day of the Premier League, apparently. Alondra, can we plug the phone in? It says low battery. Thank you. Okay, so... But I did follow up with a lot of folks. William Weathers, who shout out if you're someone who's followed LSU, Saints, Louisiana sports for a long time. You're familiar with William Weathers. He joined our team over at LouisianaSports.net. So William and Rivers today did the honors catching practice hunts at the wharf or something like that. Well, I don't know, Dave Matthews. I don't know who's he watching. Maybe not Dave Matthews. Maybe it's like what's that? Who sings that song? Alonzo goes, somebody that I used to know. Somebody. Whoever that is, yeah, that's probably who Hunt's going to see. I can't back that up, but just probably. Anyway, so William has his practice report up at LouisianaSports.net. The most notable thing from practice today is Lamar Brown was back. We told you a day ago that Lamar Brown was not there at Tuesday. I think we talked about this. At Tuesday's practice, there was a play in the team drills, as I was told, where a couple guys got tangled, slow to get up. Lamar was one of them. They put him in a boot, precautionary. Lamar even posted on social yesterday that he's out of the boot. We told you yesterday it was not a big deal, but it was notable. I mean, if the 5-star number 1 player in the country who is at a position where LSU is thin, and they are thin at defensive end, where you've already lost Gabe Relaford, and Damian Shanklin is not with the team presently, and now you tell me another guy is not at practice, yes, that is notable, so we talked about it yesterday. But I also told you that it was not thought to be in any way serious, and clearly it's not, as Lamar was back today and a full go. So that's great to see that Lamar Brown was back. Harlan Berry out at practice as well, Jordan Ross. All the guys who had been limited at various times or missing practice were all there. And it's really notable because Saturday, LSU is going to scrimmage in Tiger Stadium, and that's going to be the end of fall camp. So they practiced here Friday. They scrimmaged Saturday in Tiger Stadium. They have the day off of on-field work on Sunday. And then Monday classes begin. And as Lane Kiffin told us when he met with reporters a day ago, that's when they turn the page to Clemson. And so then they're starting to get ready for their season opening opponent. And that's when it stops being about position battles and good on good and an install of what you do. Now it's about working toward your opponent. And so everything shifts. The reps start to get pared down. It's not about getting a whole bunch of different guys reps and getting them better. It's about getting the guys who are going to play, those 50, 60 guys that are going to actually see the field against Clemson, getting them ready for that game. So, a little bit later in the show today, I do want to talk about my big fall camp takeaways. But, I do think when you go through fall camp, there are, however you want to term it, right? Winners and losers or risers or fallers, stock up, stock down, all that stuff based on what we were able to see. And if I were to kind of pinpoint a couple, I think, we've clearly seen a separation among the receivers where, remember, they brought in 9 from the portal. They added 3 freshmen, and then they had Philip Wright return. So 13 scholarship receivers. I think it's pretty clear that they've identified, as Lane said, he wanted, 4 to 6. Well, it's very clear. Jace Brown, Trey Wilson, Winnie Watkins, Jackson Harris, and then I'd throw Malik Elzy in that mix as well. I think you've identified the guys at this point that you think are going to be the key guys at receiver. I think defensively, the big story is at safety, where, as I understand it from what we've seen with our eyes and talking to people on staff, Jace Brown, I think both Jace Brown and Tamarcus Cooley are going to play against Clemson, play a lot against Clemson. But I think Jace Brown is going to start, Jace Thomas. I think Jace Thomas is going to start against Clemson at safety opposite Ty Benefield. And that's a big development where, Cooley's a guy that started every game a season ago and played 700 defensive snaps. And now you're talking about a guy in his second year in Jace Thomas who's had a great camp. Blake Baker talked about it last Friday, that he was one of the real surprises of fall camp, has elevated himself and is likely going to get an opportunity to start their week 1, game 1 against Clemson. And then, I think I would love to have been able to see something on special teams, but in all of the availability that we got out at fall camp, we literally never saw a kick, a punt, a fair catch, a kick return, nothing during fall camp. So we just didn't get to see anything from special teams. Even when the specialists were on the far field, the work they were doing was just like swinging their leg and doing calisthenics, not actually kicking. It's weird to say, but like the place kickers would like put the ball flat on the ground and then run up and like swing their leg and not actually kick the ball. So I never got to chart a field goal or tell you anything, but it's pretty clear Scott Starzik's going to be your place kicker for field goals, PATs. Grant Chadwick, the Middle Tennessee transfer, is going to be your punter. I do believe Jace Brown is going to get the first crack at returning punts. I don't know what they're going to do as far as kickoff returns. I think that remains to be seen. If I can get an answer for you, I will. But just a few takeaways so far from fall camp here, the first fall camp under Lane Kiffin, as LSU is getting ready for their season opener 2 weeks from Saturday against Clemson. Y'all, we're almost here, man. A week from tomorrow, LSU is going to scrimmage in Tiger Stadium on Saturday. Next Saturday is week 0. You have real, actual keeping score, counting against your record college football next Saturday. And then, of course, LSU and Clemson 2 weeks from Saturday in Tiger Stadium. I mean, the most anticipated season opener for LSU, probably since that 2011 Oregon game. I mean, let me not say that. Last year against Clemson was a top 10 matchup, and that was the most anticipated season opener. This one just takes on a different flavor because of the Kiffin component and everything therein, and it's in Tiger Stadium and all that. So we're all fired up for it, and it's almost here. And we will talk a little bit more throughout the show today about Lane Kiffin's first fall camp. Charlie Weiss met with reporters here on Friday. We'll let you hear some of what LSU's offensive coordinator had to say. So we got a ton to do. All right, we're glad you're with us. Our show open every day is brought to you by Bud Light. Drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR, the official beer of your Fighting Tigers of LSU. Hey, if you're going to be watching the Saints, remember, Bud Light, the official beer of the Saints. If you're going to be watching the Saints on Saturday, 3 o'clock against the LA Rams, make sure you're doing so at your favorite sports bar, watering hole, restaurant, or from the comfort of your own couch or favorite chair with delicious ice-cold Bud Light. And you can get the officially licensed New Orleans Saints cans. You can get the LSU cans in 16-ounce aluminum bottles as well. Drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR. All right, y'all, it is After Further Review. Friday show is brought to you by Don Juan Cigar Bar. We're here in the DraftKings Sportsbook at the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles, and glad to have you hanging out with us here. We'll knock out a quick break, come back. Our buddy Ross Dellenger from Yahoo is going to join us. We'll get more of the particulars and the nuance of what happened today in the 5-for-5 ruling with that court case out in Colorado with Judge Sweeney there. So we'll get to that when we come back with Ross Dellenger. Stay with us here. It's AFR.
AFR.
We're brought to you by Clegg's Nursery with 4 locations in the greater Baton Rouge area. Seagan near Airline, LA 16 in Denham, Mid-City on Donmore, and the Garden Center on Greenwell Springs. Tell you every day to buy local and shop local over at Clegg's Nursery. And remember, y'all, we are getting close to hunting season. And if you're a deer hunter and you're getting those plots ready, remember, our friends at Clegg's Nursery have got you covered. They've got buckbusters, they've got mow bucks, and they've got deer corn. All of it. You need to put those plots out. Make sure before you go to your property, you go to Clegg's Nursery. Any of the 4 locations in the greater Baton Rouge area. And look, one of the things I always encourage you to do, bypass the big box store. Clegg's is a locally owned and operated business. They've been around for 60 years serving Louisiana and South Louisiana. So make sure you go see our friends at Clegg's Nursery. Any of the 4 locations. Buy local, shop local, and be sure to tell them that Matt sent you in when you go see our friends today at Clegg's Nursery.
After Further Review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Glad to have you back with us here. We are live at the DraftKings Sportsbook at the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles. Gorgeous spot. They're so hospitable to us. I look, if you've never made a plan to pop on over to Southwest Louisiana and spend a day here or a weekend here at the Golden Nugget, you need to do it. It's a beautiful property. Trust me. Not that Tillman Fertitta would ever half-step anything, but this place is awesome. When you get to Ross Dellenger real quick, we do have breaking news, and this is significant for Lane Kiffin's LSU Tigers. Pete Thamel, just a few minutes ago, per Noah Reinsfeld of 21 Sports and Entertainment, he's the agent for former Notre Dame defensive end junior Tuihalamaka. Junior Tuihalamaka has committed to LSU. So Tuihalamaka was one of the athletes that was part of the TRO in Louisiana earlier this week. He played in 54 games over 4 seasons at Notre Dame. He made 6 starts. So if you were wondering, did LSU need help at end and edge, this is, what do I always say? Actions speak louder than words. Here you go. Junior Tuihalamaka has committed to LSU, and Jack Pyburn could be not far behind. Ross Dellenger, Yahoo, is good enough to join us. It's funny, Ross, I guess your career has pivoted a bit from covering games to covering all the ancillary stuff around college football. Thank you for the time. How are you?
Good, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Okay, let's just start with this news with Junior Tuihalamaka. You see a Notre Dame player committing to LSU, this close proximity to the ruling in Louisiana. Put the pieces of this together for me.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what sort of happened here. LSU and Lane Kiffin are using a loophole, like many other universities have used, to create an advantage, right, on their roster, and to increase the value of their roster, to improve their roster. So I think LSU, as I wrote it yesterday at Yahoo Sports, was behind this Louisiana case where you had several athletes get an injunction from a Louisiana judge to be ruled eligible for a fifth year. And Pyburn certainly was the leading plaintiff, I think, in that case. But there were some others like the Notre Dame defensive end, like you mentioned, Junior. Won't even try to say the last name, I'll butcher it. And then you had 3 Ole Miss players, too, that Lane had previously coached. There you go.
Tuihalamaka.
Then you have three Ole Miss players that at least one, maybe 2 are in the transfer portal now, and Lane obviously coached them. Look, you can hate it, and people do hate it around the country, but what LSU's doing is perfectly legal. What Lane Kiffin is doing is legal. There's a window here. The NCAA decided not to grant athletes a fifth year of eligibility. Those athletes that finish their career this spring, they would be ineligible, or they are ineligible under the old eligibility policy, but eligible under the new 5-year eligibility policy. But the NCAA did not grandfather them in. And when you look back on it, I think a lot of people at the NCAA within college sports probably think now, because of the lawsuits that are mounting and all the losses, that the NCAA probably should have grandfathered all these players in. And because they didn't, you're seeing schools keep roster spots open and support players. And again, it's not just LSU, right? There's been 18, lawsuits filed in the wake of the NCAA eligibility. 18 lawsuits, over 150 or 200 players involved in those.
Ross Dellenger is with us from Yahoo. Can we go back, Ross, and just in layman's terms, as simplistically as you could possibly explain it, explain what happened with the Colorado judge today? Yeah.
So all the 18 cases I mentioned where athletes have filed for a fifth year of eligibility using the NCAA's new eligibility policy, and the new eligibility policy grants all athletes moving forward 5 playing seasons. The old policy, 4 playing seasons with a 5th redshirt year. And so what happened is most of these cases that I mentioned, the 18, are in state court, like the Louisiana case. But there's one that was filed in federal court in Colorado. And it was a class action lawsuit that granted all of the 2022 high school athlete recruits a 5th year of eligibility. Basically, the court said, NCAA, you've got to grandfather these players in, right? They deserve a 5th season going forward. And it's all these players that are part of the 2022 class that finished their career, the 2022 high school class, that finished their career in 2026 and played 4 seasons. And they're saying they should get a 5th. Now, what happened with that today was a few weeks ago, the Colorado federal judge granted a 5th year to everybody. The problem with that, Matt, is the Colorado judge did not create a new transfer portal and did not create new roster spots for these players. So it made it difficult for these players to be added to rosters or to transfer. Basically, it made it impossible for them unless they entered the transfer portal in January, where they didn't think they'd get another year in January, so they didn't enter the transfer portal. Well, what happened today was the judge, a 3-panel appeals judge panel, stayed the ruling. So it froze the ruling. So all those players that thought they were eligible, even though they couldn't get in the portal and didn't necessarily have roster spots, they still were eligible at their current school, right, where they graduated from or were last year. Well, that is not the case anymore. That ruling is frozen until an appeals process can happen. It does not, this is important, it does not affect all the state court rulings like the Louisiana court case. It does not affect that. So now if a player wants a 5th year of eligibility, they've got to go out and they've got to go to their state court and independently sue the NCAA, like the Louisiana case. They can't rely on this Colorado federal case any longer.
Ross, do we have a timeline on the appeals process for the class action Colorado case?
Right now, according to the NCAA attorneys I spoke to today, they're planning for the first, I believe, either it's a hearing, Matt, or a brief filing at the end of September. Now, that would be a problem. It's a month in the football season. So what will probably happen is the plaintiffs in the case, the athletes and their attorneys, will move to making a motion to expedite the appeals process, but the judge would have to rule, would have to give them that ability, and we're just not sure if that's the case or not.
How quickly can athletes that thought they had eligibility and now don't file lawsuits in state court?
Immediately, right? They can go immediately. I was on the phone with an athletic director at a Big 12 school, actually, and they said they had 2 football players that were participating in fall camp right now under the Colorado ruling, and they would assume that they would be eligible, and now they're looking at, going to their state court and filing a lawsuit since they're in camp right now. So it's a very kind of a crazy time. Every time we think that things can't get crazier in college sports, they seem to.
Can the NCAA, at this point, is it too late for them to just file a blanket waiver like they did? The comp I've given, Ross, is kind of like COVID. It's just like, okay, blanket waiver, everybody gets that year. Could they do the same at this point with the 2022s?
Well, yeah, you can compare it to COVID, Matt, but even a more similar comparison may be the Diego Pavia case a couple of years ago, where he got the extended eligibility with based on his junior college years, and the NCAA ended up granting a blanket waiver for all those athletes in a similar situated position as Pavia. So it would be something similar. They could do that. They could have done that over the summer. Now, school starting, camp starting, all that stuff. So this would be very difficult, because if you did that, you'd also have to give relief to roster caps and grandfather in players to create roster caps. You'd have to have a new transfer portal window potentially so that players could move around. I do not believe especially after the Colorado decision, which went toward the NCAA's way, I do not believe they'll do that.
There's also the financial component of it as well, because you've got not only roster caps, but I would assume most programs have spent their revenue share cap as well. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you have to have enough money in probably through above the cap NIL and all that stuff to make room for these players. Absolutely.
Last thing, best guess, what do you think happens here in the next 10 to 14 days before week 1? I mean, hell, Ross, we're 8 days away from week 0. But what do you think happens between now and week 1?
Well, I think you'll see a lot more state court filings because all the players in the Colorado, the federal case, now may revert to going to state court, because that's where there's been success, right? Of the 18 state court cases filed, Matt, the players have won 11 of them. They've won an injunction or a temporary restraining order in 11. Now, the NCAA is appealing pretty much all those. But that's a pretty good hit rate. The NCAA's really only run one of them. They got to stay in one of them that freezes the injunction, kind of like the federal case. So there'll be a lot more state court ruling or cases filed, and they'll be expedited around the country. And so I'm guessing you'll have dozens, if not hundreds, of college football players join camp within the final few days of camp or preseason practice, and participate and potentially be eligible.
This is so good. This is
so a well-oiled machine, isn't it? Yeah, things are going well.
I I love the chaos, Ross, because every bit of chaos, I'm editorializing here, but every bit of chaos just forces us closer and closer to our inevitable end, which is college football is going to operate independently with its own set of rules and independent of the NCAA. And every stupid thing like this just gets us closer to that. YahooSports.com. You can go read Ross's piece. Follow him at Ross Dellenger. Thank you as always. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks.
All right. It's After Further Review. We're brought to you by Rouse's, the official supermarket of the Saints. The Saints are playing the Rams on Saturday. Ram it. Ram it. All right. I'll stop doing that. But anyway, Saints-Rams. If you're going to be watching the game at your house, throw a little meat on the grill, maybe some chips and dips and maybe something cold to drink. Get it all over at Rouse's. And right now, Rouse's is in the middle of their 4-day sale. Mega super savings on darn near everything. Started yesterday, going through Sunday. Rouse's. Get them by any location. 76 locations from Lake Charles to Orange Beach and points in between. Rouse's.com, Rouse's.com. Rouse's. This feels like home. Friday edition of AFR brought to you by Don Juan Cigar Bar there in Town Center. We are not in studio today. We're at the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles here at the DraftKings Sportsbook. We appreciate so much our friends here at the Golden Nugget for hosting us. Gorgeous facility, and we're thrilled to be here hanging out with you on this Football Friday. All right, let me knock out a break. We'll come back. We will go around the SEC when we return. Other coaches are weighing in, eviscerating courts in the NCAA for what's going on. We'll get to all of that. But I do want to talk a little bit about what Charlie Weiss had to say meeting with reporters today, because yesterday just became an avalanche of the TRO situation. We didn't get to much of what Lane Kiffin said with reporters. So we got a lot of that as we move throughout our show today, and we're glad to have you hanging out with us here. Stick around. It's a Friday edition of AFR.
AFR.
We're brought to you by River City's 1 Hour Air. Listen, it's Friday approaching 4 o'clock. It's like close to quitting time. Maybe everybody, takes that early lunch on Friday, and then they take it to the house. So your weekend is here, but it's 98 degrees in Lake Charles right now. Heat index, no doubt, in the 110 range. If your AC goes out, you can't be in a situation where you don't have AC in your home for the weekend. Well, call River City's 1 Hour Air. Remember, at River City's 1 Hour Air, they always work nights and weekends and holidays, so you're not going to sleep in a house without any AC tonight. If you have an issue with your AC, call River City's 1 Hour Air. They'll come out today and get you fixed up. 752-0001, 752-0001, 752-0001, or online at onehourbr.com. Spell it out, O-N-E, onehourbr.com. It's River City's 1 Hour Air, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime. Proform Steel, proformla.com. If you're building a metal building, you need Proform Steel. They're the best. Brandon Golson, he's awesome, been in the industry forever. He's actually on the state licensing board, so you're getting a super ethical contractor. And the biggest differentiator, there's a lot, but the biggest differentiator from Proform Steel, and it doesn't matter if you're building a metal shed in your backyard or your big industrial commercial contract, you need a giant metal building. Lead times is a huge part of it. In many instances, 6 to 10 weeks faster. And the reason is because they do everything in-house. Everything is fabricated in-house. Their engineers are in-house, so they don't have to call around to get an opinion. Just walk into the office next door. And remember, at Proform Steel, you can get a quote the same day. Go to the website, hit request a quote, top right, proformla.com, proformla.com, and it's free delivery for every building, no exceptions. proformla.com.
After Further Review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
All right, we're glad you're hanging out with us here. Thanks for being with us on this Friday edition of AFR presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. We're at the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles here at the DraftKings Sportsbook. And what a day as the news has continued to roll. The judge out in Colorado, a stay of that ruling. It does not affect, however, the individual state ruling. So the 16 players that were granted a TRO in a Louisiana courtroom earlier this week, they still have their eligibility. That means Jack Pyburn could come back to LSU in theory. Any of those Ole Miss players could transfer to LSU. And LSU did pick up a commitment from junior Tuihalamaka, who spent the last 4 years, played in 50 games during his time at Notre Dame. As a matter, he played, 54 games. Let me be specific. 7 starts, 54 games over 10 seasons there at Notre Dame. So you're talking about a guy that would immediately give you a veteran presence at a position where you are thin. We're working on trying to get one of our friends who covers Notre Dame, onto the show to see if they can give us some perspective there on junior Tuihalamaka here on the show today. All right, we're going to what else? I'm sorry. I'm a little scattered. We do have Scott Shanley in 45 minutes. Talk a little bit about the Saints preseason game with the Rams, what to watch. Matt Jacob is going to join us in about an hour from right now. A little sports betting angle, some of his favorite sports bets that involve the New Orleans Saints this year. We'll get to that here as we continue. Right now, though, we do it every day about this time, but Musso will have the honors. Let's go around the SEC.
Around the SEC, bringing you the biggest news from the nation's best conference. The Oklahoma Sooners.
Brent Venables with a major injury update for the Sooners here on Friday. That involves starting center Jake Mikakula. Of course, he suffered a knee injury during the Sooners' first fall camp scrimmage, leaving that spot in major question. The good news, though, is here on Friday, Venables announced that the injury does not appear to be something that will keep him sidelined for long, although he stopped short of an exact timeline, just saying it's, quote, a short-term injury. Mikula played in 11 games, made 10 starts at Sooners last season, was Oklahoma's second highest graded offensive lineman per Pro Football Focus. OU opens the season against UTEP on Friday, September 4th, for that marquee matchup week 2 in Ann Arbor against Michigan.
The Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Mississippi State offensive lineman Mario Nash Jr. is no longer on Mississippi State football team. That was first reported by Steve Robertson over there at Gene's Pages. Nash was a member of the Bulldogs 2026 transfer class. He came from Florida State. He was not an expected starter. This deals with the TROs and the eligibility. The Bulldogs were in need of roster space in their attempt to add both Malik Sela and Jahan Manning. That process, of course, now is complicated by the ruling out of Colorado today. Both those guys were back with Mississippi State, and Mario Nash had to hit the bricks because of it.
The Missouri Tigers.
Well, basketball note here. You guessed it, dealing with 5 years of eligibility. Missouri's Mark Mitchell has officially entered the NCAA transfer portal with a do not contact tag. He was granted an injunction in a Kentucky court out of Louisville, so now he has a 5th year. Thought to be a heavy Kentucky lean this past season with Mizzou, 18 points, 5 boards, and 3 assists per game. We'll keep you posted there if he does indeed pick Bulldogs.
The Mississippi State Bulldogs.
The Wildcats. One more here at Mississippi State. This one, basketball. Another player no longer with the team. That's Kostas Kostanov. He was an international prospect with the Bulldogs this past summer. Going to be a part of the team this year, but not anymore. 6'10" big man. Had been playing professional basketball over in Spain since 2017. Averaged 4-2 in his most recent season over there with the Spaniards, but now no longer with Mississippi State's team. That's around the SEC.
Presented by South Point Volkswagen and SouthPointVW.com. New and certified pre-owned in Baton Rouge and online at SouthPointVW.com. SouthPointVW.com. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, just put Volkswagen on your list. And when you put Volkswagen on your list, make sure you go see our friends at South Point Volkswagen. They are Louisiana's largest volume Volkswagen dealer. Right there on Airline, just north of Highland. SouthPointVW.com is where you can shop them online. If it's on the lot, it's online at SouthPointVW.com. SouthPointVW.com for South Point Volkswagen. Hopped in my Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport earlier today. Drove over here to Lake Charles. All the technology, the lane assist, the alerts keep you between the lanes and alert as you're going on a long drive. All the technology, the navigation, everything you need. The beautiful sunroof, the panoramic sunroof, gorgeous. All the different great German engineering, the awesome technology, the high IIHS top safety features, affordability, fun to drive. It's all there in the Volkswagen line. SouthPointVW.com. SouthPointVW.com. South Point Volkswagen. What's your direction? Okay, it's after further review. Thanks for hanging out with us here. one other thing that is notable here today, College Game Day did make it official. This is one of the most obvious things that was ever going to happen on the face of planet Earth. College Game Day did announce today, you might have seen earlier, they will head to Oxford for Week 3 when Lane Kiffin makes his return to Oxford when LSU plays Ole Miss in Week 3. So College Game Day will feature an LSU football game 2 of the first 3 weeks. We know Game Day will be in Baton Rouge for LSU Clemson 2 weeks from Saturday. They'll be in Austin for Texas Ohio State Week 2, and then in Oxford for LSU and Ole Miss Week 3. My sincere hope is that the LSU cooperates. You take care of business against Clemson and Louisiana Tech. If Ole Miss beats Louisville in whatever body bag game they're going to play in Week 2, they'll be 2-0. You'll have a couple of teams very likely ranked in the top 10, and it'll be a fever pitch in Oxford there in the Grove and at Vaught Hemingway Stadium on September the 19th. College Game Day will be part of it. All right, it's After Further Review. Thanks for hanging out with us here. Let me knock out a quick break. We'll come back and we'll wrap up hour number 1. A ton going on today involving LSU and the world of college football. And the New Orleans Saints are getting ready for their second preseason game on Saturday against the Los Angeles Rams out at SoFi. So we'll give you a preview of that as we move throughout the show as well. Stay with us here. It's AFR.
After Further Review.
You know, whenever it's 98 degrees with a heat index of, 110, the only way to actually exist outside is if you're in a pool. Like, you can't just go sit outside and melt into whatever chair that you're sitting in. But you go jump in a pool and cool off and enjoy a cool beverage in hand, I'm going to tell you, few better ways to spend those hot Saturdays and weekends or any day. And our friends over at Duplessis Pools can make that a reality. They do it for Louisianians every single day. DuplessisPools.com, DuplessisPools.com. DuplessisPools.com. Go to the website. Been telling you about their new 3D modeling. When you pick a pool on the home page, go to the Pick Your Pool tab, choose your pool, start choosing your features. It will build the pool in 3D real time and give you a price adjustment as well. It's such a cool feature. Check it out at DuplessisPools.com. Online, DuplessisPools.com.
After Further Review with Matt Moscona. Presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Wrapping up hour number 1. Glad you're hanging out with us here from the DraftKings Sportsbook at the Golden Nugget in Lake Charles on a pretty crazy day. If you missed it, LSU football got a commitment from a former Notre Dame defensive lineman, junior Tuihalamaka, played 54 games over 4 seasons in South Bend. He was part of the TRO in Louisiana. So just to be abundantly clear, and I'm glad Ross Dellenger said it because I can allude to it. It's hard to get people to say things on the record, and I don't know that anyone at LSU is going to say this on the record. But it should feel very obvious right now. I think the way Ross said it is you don't have to be a rocket scientist. LSU orchestrated this. LSU knew what student athletes they might be interested in adding. They certainly approached these student athletes to gauge their interest in being involved in this TRO. They had the attorneys file the suit in Louisiana court to get the favorable ruling. So the fact that a Notre Dame so a week ago when I asked Lane Kiffin the question about the 2022 class and what they were going through, because it felt like a mind-blowing process. There were over 2,000 athletes in the class of 2022 that had a grade from rivals. That's just the ones that had a grade. That's not counting the ones that didn't have a grade coming out of high school, that went to lower levels and advanced, moved, transferred, whatever. And I asked so many people over the previous 2-3 weeks in and around the LSU program about this. Are you actually pursuing since that Colorado judge's ruling, are you pursuing 2022 people? How many roster spots do you have? Which players might be able to come back? Are you actually vetting 2,000 players, et cetera? And I would always just get this sort of stonewalled answer. But and Lane Kiffin said the same thing when I asked him a week ago at his press conference. And he's like, we basically have a plan for everything, is effectively all that he said. Well, it's very clear they had a plan. And he wasn't trying to tell me nothing on the record, and nobody was apparently willing to say anything off the record as well. But what you saw in that ruling with the TRO meant this was all going to be an inevitability. It's why yesterday when we talked about Jack Pyburn, my feeling is, yeah, Jack Pyburn's going to play for LSU against Clemson. Now, could the NCAA, the NCAA most certainly will file an appeal in Louisiana State Court to try to get that TRO overturned, but they're going to go file an appeal to the same judge that granted it. And I would assume that LSU was very specific in picking the judge they did to file because they were going to get a sympathetic ruling. No different than that judge who granted Trinidad Chambliss his injunction was sympathetic, like crying while reading the ruling. I mean, they know what they're doing. And you can hate it, and I don't blame you. Like, my feeling on this, y'all know my feeling on this. There has been no ambiguity whatsoever with how I feel about this. You want to stop all this? It's easy. At LSU, Wade Roos and Verge Osbury and Lane Kiffin, they could stop it because they could tell these players, nope, NCAA said you're not eligible, you're ineligible. They're not doing it. This individual case, though, is the first time I've had a modicum of sympathy for the student athlete because the 2022, this is a very specific subset of student athlete that got caught in between a rock and a hard place with the NCAA's ruling. The NCAA approves 5 for 5, and all the 2022 players that took a red shirt are still eligible. And it would have applied to these guys had they known when their career ended, you have an option. But they didn't. So it's not like Charles Bediako or RJ Lewis. Let me use a guy who's committed to LSU, or LSU's trying to get eligible. I don't think RJ Lewis should play at LSU. I don't think he should ever play college basketball or college athletics again. RJ Lewis had eligibility. He left. And now is trying to come back. I'm not good with that. I hope Greg Sankey gets his way and the judge does not let RJ Lewis play for LSU. Now, nobody at LSU likes me saying that. I don't really give a rip. I have more sympathy for the football, the 2022, not just football, the class of 2022 student athletes who played their 4 years of eligibility over 4 seasons and were told you're out of eligibility, and so they move on with their life, and then it's like, oh, wait, actually, you do have eligibility. The NCAA, I think, mismanaged this. I think just like the COVID year, they should have provided a blanket waiver for the class of 2022 only. This is not something that would exist in perpetuity. It's literally just this very small select group of student athletes who signed in the class of 2022, never redshirted, played 4 years. There's even guys in the 2022 class. Kelvin Banks is a great example of this. Kelvin Banks was a guy who signed in 2022, played 3 years, off to the NFL. He ain't coming back. So you're talking about a very specific subset of 1 year of a recruiting class that you could provide a waiver to allow them this last year of eligibility under the new rule the NCAA has passed, and this all goes away. Instead, the NCAA is continuing to try to swim upstream with this, and you're just going to see mountains of lawsuits. And Ross Dellenger told us it's right now 18 cases involving more than 200 athletes. So there are those trying to paint this as LSU, Lane Kiffin, villain. And again, you don't have to like it. You don't have to want any of these guys to end up playing football at LSU this year. If that's your opinion, okay. Like, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I mean, there's a very logical explanation to say why you're not okay with Jack Pyburn playing in a preseason game for the Bucks on Saturday and then 2 weeks later playing against Clemson. If you're not good with that, okay. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong. Like, I get it. That's a strongly held position that I've had for a long time. This is a unique situation, in the literal sense unique, because it just affects this small subset. But what I don't like is how this is being painted as It's just LSU because it's 18 cases involving 200 athletes. So it's happening all over the country, and there's going to be more. And going to a state court to find a sympathetic judge is quite literally the same thing that Diego Pavia did in his case against the NCAA for his eligibility, that Trinidad Chambliss did. It's what all of these student athletes have done. They have filed, not in federal court, but in state court with a sympathetic judge. And the athletes have had far more success in state court than in federal court, where the NCAA is batting about 500 in these appeals. So, I don't know definitively what's going to happen here, but I find it hard to believe that the Louisiana judge is going to rule against himself in an appeal. So I think Junior Tuihalamaka is going to play for LSU against Clemson, and I think Jack Pyburn is going to play for LSU against Clemson. And there may be more, because LSU clearly filed that. LSU guided those student athletes to file that lawsuit very intentionally with the hand-picked players that were in that lawsuit, and many of them will have an opportunity, or some of them will have the opportunity to play at LSU, and we'll see which ones do. Right now, there's one, Junior Tuihalamaka, and I do think there will be more. Now, what does that mean for money, and what does it mean for roster spots and all that? I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you. But we'll continue to dig and pry and see what we can find out. We'll talk about it here as we move throughout the show. Okay, it's After Further Review. We're glad you're hanging out with us here on this Friday edition of AFR, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Always love telling you about Arco Power Systems, ARCCO, arco.com, arco.com, arco.com. It's Arco Power Systems, industrial Generac generator power. You know when the power goes out, you have a home standby generator. What about your business? That's what Arco does. Industrial Generac generator power. So when the power goes out, your business stays online. Industrial Generac generator power from Arco. ARCCO. Arco.com, arco.com, arco.com. It's Arco Power Systems, arco.com. Okay, y'all, it's After Further Review. Friday's AFR brought to you by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Let me knock out
After Further Review.
Come back. We'll let you hear from Lane Kiffin next. If you're thinking of buying land, your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. FirstSouthFarmCredit.com. 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 You know, it's interesting. I'm talking right now about, like, we do the Clegg's Library, and I get to talk about how they have all the things, the buckbusters and all that for your plots, for your hunting property, you know, for all your deer hunters. Well, like, for a lot of people, they're gearing up for deer season, and you're going to be hunting on a lease on someone else's property. Well, what if next year you're hunting on your own property? What if that's a dream that you've always had? Well, if it is, let First South Farm Credit help make that dream your reality. Log on to FirstSouthFarmCredit.com, FirstSouthFarmCredit.com. That's where you should start. They have the comprehensive land buyer's guide, if you're interested, the recreational land buyer's guide. It's the ultimate recreational land buyer's guide right there on the homepage. It's a free resource at FirstSouthFarmCredit.com. Start there today and make your dream of owning land a reality.